What type of maker are you? Are you an Adam? Or are you a Jamie? Mythbusters went off the air a few years ago. When I heard recently that Mythbusters was doing a talent contest to pick new Mythbusters, my gut reaction was, that is a horrible idea. The reason that Mythbusters worked, it's because these two guys have completely opposite styles of making. And it was that opposition that made the show so great. Jamie did an AMA on Reddit a few years back where he confessed that they're not really friends. It's not that they didn't get along on the show. They were nice enough to each other, but their personality types were divergent enough that they didn't really want to spend any time with each other off screen. And I just think that that is further evidence of why the show worked. Now look, I'm not going to change Discovery's mind. They are still going forward with their Find New Mythbusters, and they are still going to do their search. But at the end of the day, unless they happen to have the exact same on-screen charisma, it's not going to be the Mythbusters. These two guys were the Mythbusters. And it was their differences that made the show so good. For the sake of this video, I'm going to talk in generalities, and I'm going to try to do this without offending too many people. I don't think it's possible to not offend everyone, but I'm going to try to keep the number down pretty low. That's my plan. In my mind, you have a detail-oriented maker, and you have a big picture-oriented maker. Okay, let's define the terms. As a detailed-oriented maker, things that matter deeply to you. What is the plan going forward? Detailed-oriented makers start off with a plan. And now I'm not saying they have to have plans, but I am saying that a detail-oriented maker has an idea of what they want to achieve, what their goal is. And that goal has some specificity to it. Now that can be a detailed picture, an object that they are trying to replicate, or a detailed set of plans that they bring to their shop moving forward. Most detail-oriented people are not comfortable working without plans. They can work without plans, but it is not in their comfort zone. In contrast, a big picture maker is pretty much just the opposite. A big picture maker has a general idea of what they want. There is not the same specificity in the end result. They know in general that they want something, and they think that they understand the process for achieving it. They work best off the cuff, through a trial and error or a troubleshooting process, and the project is completed not when it can be measured up against some object or set of plans, but when it feels right, when it feels good. They have a more emotional connection to the project or the process. A big picture maker can totally work off plans, but it is not their preferred method of moving forward. So, really, they are opposites. Both of these people are makers. Both of these people are good makers. But the methodology for making things is completely different. And the measure of success that they use for saying whether or not they achieved it is also divergent. For instance, Adam decides he wants to build a prop replica. He knows that a certain part is 18 millimeters by 46 millimeters. He cuts that part out and it is 18 millimeters by 45 millimeters. That was miscut, and it is not a good representation of the part he was trying to make. Jamie sees that same end cut and says, how do the proportions look in relation to the rest of the piece? And either they look good and he keeps it, or they look bad and he tweaks it. This person is okay with doing troubleshooting as they go along, and they don't want to get lost in the details. This person would rather do trouble avoidance And the details are what makes a project worth doing. Don't get hung up on the details. If it's worth doing right. Let's go even further down this rabbit hole. Halfway through the project, you ask a big picture person, how's it going? Their response will more than likely be an emotional response. I think it's going well. So far, things feel good. Or, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. You ask a detail-oriented person halfway through the project how things are going. They will do a much better job of quantifying where they're at. I'm probably 40% of the way done, and honestly, most of the hard work was in the planning. It's interesting. So this opposite nature is actually what made Mythbusters work so well, right? Because Adam and Jamie both thought the other one's methods were wrong. And in a way, they were both right. Adam trying to do Jamie's method was harder, and vice versa. Jamie trying to do things Adam's way was harder, because they were both so different, which is why we got so many of these Buildoff episodes where they could pit their ideas against each other. If you watch the show, this wasn't uncommon. They did this a lot. And the beginning would always start the same. It would be Adam looking up things on the internet, or researching plans, or reading other people's assessments of what is the first step. He would be getting general knowledge. He would be giving himself this sort of general knowledge. He was preparing for the project. Now, Jamie was completely different. We'd see him walking around the wood shop, opening up bins, pulling things out and looking at them. He was all about, how do we do this with what I've got? You know, what can my experience teach me about this project? What is it that I already know that can make this work? And it's when they got together that this really played off each other, you know? Adam would be, slow down, let's think about this, let's not just rush forward. And Jamie would be, let's not overthink this problem, let's just try some stuff. Let's try some stuff. Here's the point I'm getting to. I think most of us fall into one of these two general categories. Either you're more a Jamie type maker, or you're more an Adam type maker. So what type of maker are you? And this is the part where things can go badly. In looking at my YouTube subscription list, I find that the majority of people that I subscribe to tend to be more like me. I would describe myself as a big picture builder. I do not like the details, and you've heard me say this numerous times. I'm just gonna wing it. I'm just gonna go for it. What's the worst that can happen? I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm gonna just try it. Well, that didn't work. That didn't work. That didn't work. And for me, it's more fun to troubleshoot problems as they arise than to try to deal with all problems. Now, I am subscribed to a number of detail-oriented YouTube channels, but not many of them. I will watch Adam on Tested. It's an enjoyable YouTube channel. Matthias Wandel is another one. He is a detail-oriented builder. I think his tagline is an engineer's approach to woodworking. Hello? Hello? Detail-oriented. Oh, and here's something funny. So when I was at Maker Faire last year, Adam Savage gave a talk. Do you know which maker he recommended you watch?
Yes, sir. YouTube channels. I'm terrible. I kind of find them as they come. I'm subscribing to one right now, and it's this amazing guy who I'm sure many of you know of, Matthias Wandel, who builds everything out of plywood.
Matthias Wandel, because detail-oriented makers like to watch detail-oriented makers. And big picture makers like to watch big picture makers. There is only one channel that I have notifications set up on. That means that when they post a video, I actually get a notification of it. and that's Jimmy DiResta. And Jimmy DiResta is a big picture builder. Jimmy does not get lost in the details. If he runs up with a problem, he'll just let his mind work on it at night. That's a big picture builder. So we've got Jimmy DiResta over here in Team Jamie. We've got Matthias Wandel over here in Team Adam. I could very well upset some people here, so I'm just going to name a couple that I think are pretty strong contenders for each type. I like to watch Jay Bates. Jay Bates has said that he doesn't like going into the shop without plans. I would definitely call Jay Bates a detailed-oriented builder. Steve Ramsey is another one that I subscribe to. Steve's whole pitch is that anyone can be a woodworker, and he breaks it down to be simple. He does have plans and templates, but I think Steve is much more a big picture project person than a detail-oriented person. Bob at I Like to Make Stuff, I think falls more into the Adam camp. I think he tends to plan out projects. He has admitted that he's got 3 or 4 projects planned out ahead of time. And I think that level of detail just proves that he is a detail-oriented builder. Another channel that I really like watching is Frank Howarth, and I'm honestly not sure where he falls. In my gut, I would say that Frank Howarth is a big picture maker, but he is a detailed-oriented filmmaker. I think Frank has enough trial and error in a project that I think he's definitely a big picture guy. So, what type of maker are you? Do you find yourself more in the big picture Jamie Heineman camp, or do you find yourself more in the detail-oriented Adam Savage camp? I would suggest you look at your YouTube subscriptions and see who are the type of video makers you like watching. If you are a big fan of people that I've listed in the big picture folks, you're probably a big picture maker. If you're a big fan of the folks I've listed in the detail-oriented, then you might be a detail-oriented maker. As we tend to like to watch the people that make the same way we do. And it's not because we don't see valid points the other way, but there's this connection to a process. You go, hey, I get that. That's the way I do it. That makes sense to me. I find the whole thing interesting. And some of you are probably thinking right now, duh. But to me, I found this really interesting. It really made me think about the way we are as people and how much our personality affects the way we build and how much that also affects what we like to watch. So let me know down in the comment section if you build more like Adam or more like Jamie. Are you more a big picture maker or are you more a detail-oriented maker? I'm going to leave a couple comments down below, one that says Team Adam and one that says Team Jamie. If you see it, put a like in whichever one you tend to lean more towards. I think it might yield some interesting data. But since I'm not a detail-oriented guy, it's really not important. And last year at Maker Faire, Adam Savage answered my question, made my day. So I'm going to show that clip on the way out.
Yes, sir. What is next for me? That is a great question. I'm wondering the same thing. I have a lot of plates spinning. I'm pitching other shows. I've jumped it with both feet into Tested. We've been doing a ton more one-day builds. Ton more travel is coming up. That's really exciting. Really exciting. So Tested is a key part of the future. Tested in all of its adjuncts and ancillary ideas. Like, we're going to push it to be much wider. Working with the White House Office of Science and Technology to figure out ways to lower the threshold to making for everyone. If I have any bit of a platform that lasts for any time, I want to just keep on helping people understand that that's really important. Absolutely. And then, you know, spending time in my shop. There's just nothing better than farting around in your shop trying to, you know, making something better for your kitchen.